tonight Randy's on with me. Randy, thanks for coming on again. I appreciate that.
Oh, it's been a blast doing this. I really appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have you. We had talked about, we've been on, this is the third one. And what we were talking about going into tonight had to do with compliance, keeping yourself out of hot water. Obviously you've been doing this long enough. How hot does the hot water get that you're trying to stay out of?
Well, Brian, that's a good question because we went through most of our time as a dealership not knowing the potential problems that we could have been involved in. We were really lucky that we got a controller from an automotive dealership, and she really woke us up to what we didn't know. And I think most motorcycle dealerships don't realize that if you don't have a culture of compliance, if you aren't looking for ways to keep yourself out of trouble, it can get pretty bad. I mean, it can be huge fines. It can be jail time if you're doing it. They can prove that you are knowingly breaking rules or laws. And I've met a lot of dealers, and I can tell you, I have shared a lot of this with them, and they have gone on to ignore it even after that. So, in some cases, it might even put our dealership at a disadvantage because we're so careful about all the I dotting and T crossing. But in the end, I can sleep at night. Last thing I want to do is pay a big fine or go to jail. So yes, it's very serious.
You go with the advertising front. What sort of agencies do you rely on to get that sort of information compiled?
Well, first I want to mention is I was going to talk about compliance for the whole dealership, and I realized just breaking off the sales piece would probably been where the most pitfalls are. It would easily fill our time here tonight. So everything here for the most part will be for sales, but there's a whole bunch we haven't talked about for the rest of the dealership. Also, I've listened to enough podcasts and about law to know that I need to say that I'm not a lawyer.
and either
all my advice is, and all my advice should be completely ignored because I'm not a lawyer. And so therefore, with that, I will say what I've read from other people and gotten from other sources, but you need to go to your own lawyers and sources, your state and federal, and whatever you need to do to make sure you're following the law. Don't take my word for it. So we'll go from there. Another thing I wanted to say is the toughest part about one of the toughest part about being in compliance is there's two types of compliance or laws that you have to watch out for. I mean, there's regulations, which are clearly stated by the regulatory bodies like FCC, your state government, whoever in California, the DMV board. I mean, you know who is regulating you. And they have their rule books, but the other side is there's case law, and none of us are going to go out and read case law as things change. And you could be doing something for the last 4 years that's completely within the regulations of your state and federal and city, and then there could be a case in court that the results say that whatever you were doing is now not legal. So you can never 100% protect yourself, especially regarding employment law, which we're not going to get into tonight. I mean, that would be a whole different.
I'm here in Oregon, and I worked for a company that was here in Oregon, but we were close to the Washington boundary, and in that time, right, I had this in the case I'm talking about. It was like marijuana was legal in Washington, not legal at that point in Oregon. People would come to work and maybe lived in Washington, and they would show up and have a fender bender and get a drug test, and they would say, no, I live in Washington. And it was, and this isn't exactly what you're talking about, but I know that obviously a company's policies needs to hold to the, I don't know if it's lowest common denominator is the right terminology, but they need to be to the most stringent, right, of them is what you're saying. Between federal and state, you need to know that if one is more strict than the other, then that's your new standard, right?
Yeah, or if you're advertising in a way that that's legal one way and not the other, then you probably ought to just not do it. Even you're not going to win that argument.
Right.
Okay, so here's a list of some things. We're really lucky because the NADA guide. NADA has made a guide of how to properly advertise. These are federal rules, by the way. So let's see. When you're going to advertise rate or payments or down payment, my recommendation is that if you can't get that verbiage from the manufacturer, like when they put out a monthly program, then you probably shouldn't advertise it. You can, one way you could possibly, I don't know if this covers all the bases, is say special financing available, which is I don't see how you can get in trouble with that. But if you say 0% financing and this is your payment, then you should definitely get those numbers from your manufacturer and not make them, let their lawyers be the ones who put those together.
That's a hard one, right? I guess that's always something that I hear from, I mean, that's why when so many phone calls from consumers come into dealers, they, I see your price. What's it, what's that include? Do I have to pay setup and freight? Do I have to pay, they ask all the questions because that's not necessarily a level playing field on how things are advertised. But I guess these sort of agencies, that's what they're trying to do. But at the same time, you've got individual businesses that are trying to, not be the same as their neighbor. They're just trying to do what they feel like is a fair deal and bring customers to them. But I can see where that definitely could be problematic.
Yeah, you would think, like I say, nothing about the law that I found is intuitive. You have to go out and find out what is real. Because if you go off your gut feeling about the law, you'll probably be wrong.
If you're applying common sense to it, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, this is the common sense thing would be this. Oh wait, sorry, my expectations are too great.
That's why it's so hard to become a lawyer, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so let's see. Bait and switch. I think this one we've all heard of a lot. You can't make an offer on something to get someone in to then knowingly try to switch them to another product that you have. I don't know how deep that goes. I don't know if you buy a beat up old used motorcycle and you advertise it specifically to get people in. I don't know how deep that rule goes, bait and switch, but I think the really comes down to is advertising a vehicle you don't have,
okay,
or isn't available for sale, and then
well, we get as much as we can. What are you offering? Like obviously it's that sort of it's not all black and white. It's all, which consumers hate, or most of them hate. But yeah, that's an area where I certainly wouldn't be against hang tags. It requires somebody to do the work, up front, get it all on there, make sure they're all right, continue to look at them and make sure that it's what it should be. It's the proper pricing and all these different lines on it. But
yeah, I mean, it's when you first start getting into learning all the compliance rules, at first you're like, why do I have to do all this? But now it's like, yeah, I get it. Every customer should be treated equally. Right. They should get the same. There shouldn't be let's make a deal on fees. They should be clear and if it's a fee, then you should charge everybody the same. Mm-hmm. That's just good business. I remember a time when we didn't we didn't price our used bikes, and you'd sell them for whatever you can get out of them, but it's just not the right way to do it. And of course, the internet, that was never a legal thing. It's still not a legal thing in California as to having hang tags on used bikes, but everybody's used to the internet now, so you show all the flaws and the blems and the actual price you're charging for it, and you do business the right way. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So here's a little this is one of my favorite little stories about compliance that really shows how you can almost never know it all, and none of it makes sense. So in California, we have to have hang tags. If you want to have handling charge or a PDR charge or whatever you want to call it, you have to call it additional dealer margin. It has to be on a separate hang tag. It has to be on the handlebars, and if you those two tags, they cannot be on the same hook or clasp or zip tie. They have to be on separate zip ties so that you don't confuse the customer into thinking it's one contract or one hang tag. So that's the most extreme case of you won't believe this that we've come up in, and it's mind-boggling.
That's crazy.
And believe it or not, it's rare that I go into a dealership, and I go to a lot picking doing dealer trades, that anybody's doing it right. I can tell you we do it right, but I rarely see another dealer that's doing it right. It has to be provided by the manufacturer. It can't be modified. They call it a Monroney. They can't be modified by the dealer, and any modifications have to be done on a separate hang tag that's easy to see and not connected.
Well, I could see that as an advantage. I could see it as an advantage where obviously then that stands out and it pops out if you've got some whatever additional things, like if you added accessories on or whatever, right? That it gives that thing the differentiation, and that way it's a positive thing that it stands out that way. It's not just blends in like, oh, I didn't know this had this bolt-on pieces on it, $3,000 worth of added stuff. It's obvious in the tagging. But is that the same with automotive then? Are they required to do that in automotive? They could have a whole new window sticker next to the other window sticker?
Yeah, they call it a label. So, it'll be the Monroney, and then the label is the additional dealer items. And everybody in the state, the car dealers, they all do it exactly right.
Okay.
But, customers walk into our dealership and they see additional dealer margins instead of a PDI charge, and they think and we have to explain to them, we're following the rules. All the other dealers that you went to where they had PDI charge there, they're not following the rules, and right off the bat, the first thing you know about us is we follow all the rules, so you can trust us. We do your contract. Everything we do will be by the book. So it can be a negative at the start, and then if they're willing to listen, it can be a positive.
Well, following the rules, then you screwed up everybody else. Then everybody else is, right? I'm sure you've heard that already from some other guys. Oh, sure, you're following the rules. Well, I don't want to go to jail. Thank you. But at that point, then you become the, what do they call that? The first domino, right? That causes all the other ones to have to follow suit.
Yeah, unfortunately, very few people do follow suit. And I think we're part of the California Motorcycle Dealer Association, and we should all get together, learn our business, and be as responsible as the automotive industry is, and bring up the level of the way people think of motorcycle dealers instead of, I'm sure we've heard it, motorcycle stealers, right?
Yeah. Stealership. Yeah, that's an old one.
Yeah.
Automotive, I think is where I ever first heard that, but yeah. But shockingly, it's
kills me to hear it.
Yeah, well, yeah, and because it's not, ultimately, it's the margins, the profit margins on motorcycles, for example, are never what consumers imagine. Oh, it's $10,000. Okay, would you take 5? Like, no, that's not how this works. This isn't clothing. I'm not selling you clothes at the store.
Yep, we have one of the most difficult jobs there is, and then nobody wants to pay for it. I shouldn't say that. We have great deals and tight deals, and we only remember the tight ones, right?
Right.
Okay, so now we can go on to sales contract law. You ready for that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So this is when you're putting your deal together. There's a lot of federal rules that apply to that. And I don't know any other states than California, so I've tried to keep away from anything that has to do with state law, except for I'll note a few of them, because if it's happening here, it will probably happen in your state eventually. And if not, There's lots of California dealers listening, I'm sure, so they'll get that advantage. So we talked about last time the Military Lending Act. You're not allowed to sell Gap to anybody in the military or who is a dependent of military, and it's the dealership's responsibility to go to the MLA site. You have to. It used to be it was open to everybody, but now you have to register. It's free, but you have to register to put the customer's information in. I believe it's Social Security number and name. So you have to, and then you show that they're not in the military, and then you print that out, and then you can offer that customer Gap. And if they are not in the military or if they're not dependent. And see, I was talking about checklists in the first time we talked, and these you can see now why checklists are so important, because
Absolutely.
First of all, you can link every one of these sites that you have to go visit, and you make it as a part of the checklist. The next thing is the OFAC, Office of Foreign Assets Control. So it's our job to make sure that we're not selling anything to anybody who is a terrorist. And if you really follow the letter of the law, even the parts counter should be doing this, although realistically nobody does and probably nobody will. But if you're selling a vehicle, you need to run their information through the OFAC and then print out to show that their name is not on there. If it's John Smith, it's going to come up most likely. So then you got to put the address in and keep refining it till you show either it is or isn't. And you absolutely can't sell something to somebody on the OFAC list. And in case anyone thinks this is a ridiculous or not real step, I got a list here of the 2019 enforcement information. People who've been fined. It's right off their website. Small companies or smaller, companies like Elf Cosmetics paid $996,000. Let's see, hotel beds paid $222,000. These are fines that they paid for selling to somebody who was on the OFAC list. And there's big companies, bankers and Western Union. So it's a real thing. You might be selling a motorcycle to somebody who's going to use it for their own purpose, and they're on the OFAC list. They're not going to use it for a terrorist purpose, and you're still going to be in trouble.
Yeah, they're still on the list, right?
Yep. So most dealers that I've run into do not do that. Car dealers, yes. I don't think I've ran into any motorcycle dealerships that are doing it. Next one is the $10,000 cash form. So if a customer wants to buy a motorcycle and gives you more than $9,999, you've got to fill out a form with their Social Security number and turn it in that you took that amount of cash. And here's the one that really trips up most dealers. They think that they're clear if the customer spent $99.99, but if they came in any time during the rest of that same year and spent $1 in cash, you're out of compliance. It's $10,000 per year.
Oh, per customer per year.
Yep.
Okay.
And most people don't realize that. Let's see. Here's one that's more of case law than a regulation. Of course, it's different from state to state. Let's say customer buys a bike and does not get liability insurance and rides away. We have them sign a form saying they understand they have to have liability insurance, and liability insurance is required by law in California. So you think that it would be on the customer, but we actually had a customer who tricked one of our salespeople into saying they had liability insurance, and they did not have liability insurance, and they went and got in an accident, and we ended up having to be responsible for some of that, even though it wasn't a specific law. So it is a law that we were supposed to make sure, but our lawyer recommended that we take care of that. So even if your state doesn't say that you should make sure your customer has insurance in place, I would recommend that you do.
All the endorphins go away from their fun purchase, right? And they're back to their real life and working, and they're not riding their toy or whatever, and then they're Yeah, they get critical about something and look, and they're certain that they didn't get everything they were supposed to because they saw an advertisement or whatever. Yeah, I totally get where that would be. We're all on the same page, and I feel like I've signed a form here in Oregon the same way in the past for whatever it was, whether it was some sort of additional incentive from the dealership or from the manufacturer, like whether it's like, you bought a Honda and you got some bonus bucks or whatever. Like, here's the form to say you got bonus bucks. That's in the deal,
Yep.
But it's good. Everybody's on the same page, like you say. Then that way, refer back to your paperwork before you come mad, because we're all
it'll always help
above board.
Yeah, it'll always help. It'll always protect the dealership. And you'll feel better doing it, and helps you not make mistakes. So you make sure they got all the incentives they're supposed to get.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. In California, and I don't know about other states, you have to apply rebates correctly. So if the manufacturer says that they manufactured a customer rebate, you have to be sure that the rebate comes off at the right point, so that, like in California, it has to come off the bottom of the deal so that the taxes are paid on the full amount of the bike. Mm-hmm. Instead of deducting it from the in front of the MSRP or the selling price of the bike. And the funny thing about this one is you would think that the banks would be watching this, and they don't. So it's up to you to make sure that you're taking the rebates the correct way. So a manufacturer to dealer rebate can be taken as a discount off of the bike, and not off the bottom. Of course, you have to check your state. But if you've been advertising that rebate and telling everybody about it and saying it's part of the deal, then you might want to take it as a customer rebate because you're promoting it to everybody. So that's when you want to check with your lawyer about. Okay, rate participation. So they've definitely been tightening down on banks and dealers to make sure that you do not, if you add a point to the loan, that you would have added that point to everybody and not just the people you think you can get it from, because of discrimination. So you can go to the NADA, www.nada.org/fair credit, and you're supposed to build the whole process inside your dealer to make sure that you're always offering everybody the same amount of markup that is your dealer's stated policy. You cannot just say this customer looks like they'll pay 2%, and this customer, they're too careful. They won't pay that 2%. It has to be the same amount.
Is that something that can be automated in like Lightspeed or somewhere that you wouldn't have to? I mean, obviously you'd still be particular about watching for it because you're never held to that standard. But is that something that the system can automate, or is it just something that the guys just have to know? Here's the procedure. This is what we do.
I think you have to use a form that has the right verbiage on. I think you can print a form out of Lightspeed possibly, but probably you could just have that on your drive, link to your checklist, so you can print it out off the checklist. If it's I found the forms that are in Lightspeed, you're less likely to remember because you have to go in and dig for them. If the forms are connected directly to your checklist, because you have to fill it out anyways, they're easier to print out because you're on that point of the checklist. Click on it and print it out.
I'm curious what they allow for markup. Like does California have a particular on what they allow you to do?
2%. If I got my numbers right, it's 2%.
Okay.
It might be 2.5. It's changed. I mean, I can't remember. It was a 3. I think it might be 2.5. But a lot of the lenders have a built-in flat fee or one. So we have our policy. We know it's within, so I don't even think about what the max is.
Sure.
We have to ask me the same all the time. But yeah, you want to check your state for what the max is.
Okay.
All right. if you accept credit applications, you should accept a credit application for anybody who wants to put a credit application in. It's not a good idea to say, if you don't think you got good credit, don't waste my time. I don't want to put in your application because again, of discrimination.
Mm-hmm.
And along those lines, you definitely don't want to coach anybody on how to fill that application out. You don't want to fill the application out for them. You don't want to lie on the application. You don't want to, anything. All that information has to come from the customer's hand or their computer, and you would never be involved in the process of transferring that information about their credit to the lender. It has to come from them.
Yeah, I can see that being a problem.
Yep. And that's one of the biggest F&I problems, coaching and lying on credit applications. I know lots of people I've read in news stories, many people get in trouble for this one. Let's see. Of course, you want to make sure the person that you're financing, taking the application from, is the person who's actually going to use the vehicle. That's straw purchase. You don't want to do a straw purchase. So that's another very common mistake. If someone gets turned down, even if the lender that turned them down sends the adverse action form, which means a form that says you were turned down, and there's a whole bunch of processes in this, and I'm not going to say them all here, but you want to do the adverse action process. Give the customer, tell them that they were turned down and why, and even though the lender is providing that, the dealer is required to provide that as well.
An actual form, or just you're talking about the actual what they typically would mail to them, right? It would go to them in the mail or whatever. Like I say, the lending company is going to send it out, but you need to get one that, and I think you can get that from Reynolds and Reynolds possibly, or NADA. Make sure you get it from a reputable source and fill that out completely, and you mail it to them, or give it to them on the spot if you want to. All right. If you sell vehicles out of state, I know at least California, and I know Washington, and I know there's others where even though the customer is trailing the vehicle away in California, you take possession of the bike in California, you have to pay sales tax in California. I'm fairly certain there are many other states that are the same way, and some states have reciprocal sales tax. Many of them, if you pay sales tax in one state, it's already considered paid in the state they're registering it in. But you'll have to look those up case by case, and I certainly can't tell you which ones they are.
Thanks again for listening to this lost tape of the Dealership Fixit podcast. These guest interviews still hit hard, and we're bringing them back re-edited, sharpened up, and focused entirely on what matters, helping dealerships like yours improve, grow, and win. If you got something out of this one, hit that share button or forward it to a dealership friend who needs it. And make sure you're following the show so we can keep bringing you more content like this with convos with people shaping the powersports industry. Catch you on the next one.
Still guessing what to pay on a used bike? Still holding aged units that just won't move? It's time for a real system. Moto Hunt's ultimate used inventory playbook shows how the best dealers are finding better inventory, pricing trades right, and turning used bikes faster with fewer mistakes and more margin. It's short, real, and free to download right now. Visit dealers.motohunt.com to grab your copy or check for the link in the notes.